Good evening, everyone. This is the budget meeting for June the 4th, 2026. I will call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Noah? Here. Councilwoman Covington?
Here.
Councilman Cassoff?
Here.
Mayor Shropshire?
Here.
Councilman Franklin? Councilman Palmer? Councilman Williams?
Here.
A quorum is present. There is a motion. Well, no, we're not going to have a closed session this evening. Not yet. City manager. City manager, I guess it's time for you to do your thing.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Hope everybody's doing well this evening. So we ended the last budget session, still needing to cut about 600,000 out of the general fund. After analyzing the capital over the past couple of days, it is beyond deficit spending at this point. It is actually in the red. And so I gave you a sheet of paper this evening that outlines basically all the capital projects. And what's included in there are the 2 street projects that are grant funded, and then anything else that we're under contract or is required or we absolutely have to do is still included in there. We've highlighted in red anything that should be cut at this point because of the nature of the capital improvement fund currently. So I am suggesting that these items also be cut from the budget. The grand total is about $530,000 being cut out of capital. That will still leave it in the red next year by about 300,000 overall. But this is as far as we could go, point blank. There's nothing else in this budget that I could cut. The only item that is left in here that I could do without potentially, that I don't think we should do without, is the engine for our snowplow. And that's primarily because we're limping through, and if we get any amount of snow next year, we are gonna have to have that truck. And we left it in there to the tune of $40,000, and that's keeping the entire truck intact and only replacing the engine so it'll run. So that's where we're at right now. So if the council wants to, they can pass this as presented, and that'll save us another 530,000, like I said, just to give you and the general public an idea of where we're at as far as cuts we've made to this point. If we cut the funding that we've discussed to salaries, we will be at $1.930 million that we have cut compared to last year's budget. That does not include the salaried positions that we cut prior to going into this budget, the assistant city manager, the code enforcement officer, assistant finance director, such and such. We're probably close to about 2.2 million overall that we've cut compared to last year. So it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be easy. The belt is going to be very tight for the next 12 months, but this is what we have to do to move forward. I do not in any form or fashion enjoy doing this. I think you know that. But if we're going to sustain the city as a whole, these are the things that we're going to have to do. And so I'm just being upfront and honest with you at this point. So I am looking for basically motions and seconds and votes for 3 items this evening, I believe. And it's up to you guys, to your pleasure, how you want to do it. Looking for the capital cuts that are in front of you. I'm looking for salary dollars out of the general fund. So I will leave it up to you and answer questions if you have.
Councilwoman Noah?
Thank you, Mayor. So last week during the budget, I thought we had already removed the $60,000 for it's hard to see, the crack sealer.
You did.
Okay.
That is already included in here. Basically, as I mentioned from the beginning, I'm trying to work off your original document with anything I present you.
All right, just making sure.
So these are general overall compared to original budget, draft budget as presented.
Okay, and so, I'm sorry.
I just was gonna generally go through these items if that's okay, or you can ask your question. I can do that afterwards. It's up to you.
Well, no, you can go through. I just had a couple questions, but I can wait.
I need to grab my readers because I can't read this all.
Yeah.
This shows me my age right now, my gray hair and my readers on at the podium, so I feel great about my life. To be clear, if we did not do this, we would be deficit spending and beyond to the tune of $800,000. So by doing this, we're still going to be deficit spending by $300,000 that's coming out of the general fund at this point. But the things that we're looking at are the building upgrades and repair to both firehouse and PD. We're looking at the replacing of fire equipment. We're looking at the portable walkie-talkie batteries. We're looking at the police cars and outfitting them. We're looking at the citywide AEDs. We're looking at the other batteries. We're looking at a bed for a service truck, and we're looking at the crack sealer completely being cut. I will say with the motion you guys made the other night to rent the crack sealer, we probably will come to you at some point in the fall or a little bit before with a possible budget amendment to rent that. Or we will try to find it cheap enough where it will fit within the department budgets, but it just will not be coming out of capital at that point, to make that clear. We still will need a crack seal. We have a couple options on the table for looking at rentals and then possibly borrowing some equipment from adjacent municipalities. So we'll evaluate the cheapest option. I'll come back to you with that, but I want to be clear that we're still going to try to do the crack sealing. It's just not in the budget at this point. So, you had questions?
Okay, yes, the first question is, so regarding the common fleet, which is staying in the CIP, and those are for cars that those
That
are
is the fleet lease.
the fleet lease.
And the
Annual
reason it's
fee.
still in here is because it's under contract.
Okay,
Like if it's in here, that means I have a contract in place and I have to pay that because I'm under contractual obligation and
okay,
I could not remove it.
okay, and that's the same with the fire, what is that, a pumper
Correct.
truck?
You've
Okay,
got
so
pump
we,
trucks in there, you've got a ladder truck in there, you've got the interest from those loan payments, everything, like anything that is not cut,
okay,
I didn't have a choice.
I mean, I just want to make sure I'm on the same page as you, city manager.
Yes, ma'am.
Replacement of cell phone, okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? One thing that I think that you said that I feel is good is looking into other municipalities. I think partnerships go a long ways if we want to, work together. Maybe they might have that crack sealer and we might be able to, in return, do some mechanic work on some vehicles, to bargain what they usually do, far as, just find some way we can bargain, we can use this and then we could fix something of theirs, or if they need a lend lease of an hourly person for something and they're doing. I think forming partnerships with the other municipalities, even after this budget, get together with the mayors and the city manager and talk about partnerships. So if they need something we got, we be in exchange to work hand in hand. And I think that might be a little extra for us and them too, because we don't know who else might be in budget problems. We just don't hear about it.
Well, I know that I read some stories today and I think Webster Groves announced yesterday, the day before, they're looking at a $1.7 million deficit. There's several others in the same boat we are. So we're not alone in this. I think I told you that from the beginning. The reason we're here is because tax revenue is underperforming, both on property tax and sales tax. And then you throw in a bunch of other wrenches that we've had to deal with over the past 5 to 7 years, and there's a reason we're here. So.
And then, another, I think, I don't know if this could happen or not, but, we have our police vehicles. We used to do 2 to a vehicle. And, now we might have 4 vehicles going and 1 man. So, that's just something tossed out. I don't know if we have that option to think about that. Maybe that's in the chief's budget, but that's just something that, I've been sitting at home trying to think of things that we could do that I see every day outside. Yeah. The administration part of it, being out at Walmart, they get a call, got 4 cars, 4 guys.
And I've been pretty clear at the beginning, like when that comes to that type of decision, I will rely on the department heads to make those decisions as far as what they feel is appropriate for the department. But the objective is going to be to save as much as we can on a month-to-month basis. Sure. And if there's places where we can save and reduce, we're still going to try to do that moving forward. Just because this balance is approved and budgeted and all those things, we need to save more on top of this, but we had to start somewhere. There's a lot of changes that need to come and we had to make that motion to get going in the right direction. So.
Okay. Anything else for anybody? I request a motion and a second to pass the cuts of what the city manager have brought before us on the, this is capital. Capital, on the capital funds. Mike wasn't on, that don't count.
She heard me.
See, you gotta have your microphone on. Is there a second?
Second, David Williams.
May we have a vote, please?
Councilwoman Covington?
Aye.
Councilman Williams?
Aye.
Councilwoman Noah? Councilman Cassoff?
Aye.
Mayor Shropshire?
Aye.
Thanks.
The motion passes. City manager?
That was all I had tonight, other than like we mentioned before, the salary dollars. That's still up to your purview, as I mentioned. The budget does have to be balanced, so either you're gonna make a motion in a second to make those reductions that we've discussed, or I'm gonna do it tomorrow, and then it's gonna be in front of you in a week and 2 weeks after that for the final approval. So I would appreciate if the motion in a second did happen, but either way, that's the route we have to go to make this balance, so.
And
Yes.
and to be clear, city manager, the budget that we will get 2 weeks from now will be exactly the same whether we move in second or not.
That is 100% accurate. My duty as city manager is to balance this budget. That's what the
So it's
charter
gonna be
says.
exactly the same. And when it arrives 2 weeks from now, somebody's gonna have to make a motion in a second to consider that budget.
That's correct. So either your two avenues right now, or somebody makes a motion in a second tonight to reduce the salaries in emergency services as discussed by a total of $600,000. I've heard 250 and 350. I've heard 300 and 300. If that does not take place tonight, I am going to do it regardless tomorrow. The budget that comes to you next week for first reading will reflect that, and you will have to vote on it at your second reading 2 weeks after that. So either way, you're going to vote on it. It just depends when you want to do it.
Yes, chief? Did you have? Oh, okay, I saw you. Yes. Councilwoman
I
Miller?
personally feel as though it should be 300 from, each, from FPD and fire. And I believe you're the city manager, so I believe it's your duty, and then you bring it to us to vote on. That's how I personally feel. I'm not going to make that motion.
Well, I'll be honest, looking at the departments, one does have a higher budget than the other. And that's the reason I gave you the numbers of 250 and 350. If you as a council would rather see it even, you will need to make that motion.
Now, and I would like to discuss this with my fellow council people. I don't mind making that motion to make it 300 and 300 from each department. I think that makes sense to me. But before I make the motion, I would like to have a discussion with the council.
Councilman Cassoff?
Could you, because it's so many pages to flip through, can you tell us the respective general fund allocations for police and fire?
So if you go to page number 198, you're gonna see the police department's total budget on the first page. Fire is gonna be page 220.
And those numbers are,
198 is page number 220.
why not, can you just tell me the numbers? I mean.
She got
you- The general fund budget only.
Yeah, fire, hold on. So the overall police budget is $6,207,000. And the overall fire budget was $4,733,000.
Say it again. for me.
$4,733,000.
And to be clear, that's only their general fund.
That is out of the general fund respectively. So one
Okay.
is at over 6 million, one's at over 4 million. That's why I said 250, 350 originally.
I think we can send it back to, police department, as the chief does, see if he can do some more cuts.
He's already said he won't. Unless he's ordered to. So when he said when he casts the budget, he'll do what he's told, but he's not gonna recommend anything.
Mayor and council. We're just having a side discussion with our fire chief, and he's already identified 300,000. So we can do it that way and it'll be even.
He's already,
Yes.
okay.
And that doesn't create a hardship for the fire department.
It's three staff members. I mean, both of these are gonna be a hardship, let's be honest.
Oh, I understand, but
He's just being a team player in this regard.
I mean, because you can't, you're not guaranteed that there's gonna be a tax bail this out 6 months down the road. That might be a cut that you're stuck with for a long time.
It could be a cut for a full 12 months. We realize that.
But just to be clear, this is sorry, just to be clear. This is a wage,
You go read.
this should be a
No,
wage.
no, you
cut?
go read, go read. That's you.
Okay, there we go. Just to be clear, this is gonna be a wage cut for both departments.
Correct. What I'm proposing you right now and what I will put in the budget now is 300,000 coming out of salaries in general for the police department from the general fund and salaries in general from the fire department as well. 300,000 from each. In fire, that will be firefighters, captains, those level. Police has some admin positions, some other stuff that chief can look at. I'm gonna leave it up to the department heads to identify those personnel that they will be doing without.
Yes, Councilman Cancel.
So at 250 and 350, the PD was actually bearing a slightly larger proportion of the debt in relation to the size of their general fund. At 300 and 300, the fire department is bearing a substantially higher relative cut. So, if you're okay with that, that's terrific. If you feel you need a little bit more breathing room than that, but if it doesn't make any difference to you, then great. Then you're helping us out.
You can't hear him, but he said, we're gonna have to do what we have to do. This is to sustain the city. That's what this is about at this point.
Okay, well, if Chief Hampton's good with it, then I'm good with it. That's, but then we gotta talk about the logistics of, Chief Hampton's already made it clear what he's going to do. I think there may be some disagreement about, what the police department's gonna do. And that's gonna be under the control of, the police chief, unless we specify anything in the budget.
That is correct.
And one of the things that concerns me in terms of the police department is Chief Doyle gave us an extensive presentation about how their call volume is high, their staffing is for patrol officers and detectives is tight, and that if there's cuts made to patrol officers and detectives, that's going to create a hardship. So personally, I would like to say, since Chief Doyle hasn't given us any indication of what he's gonna do, I don't believe we should be cutting patrol officers and detectives. I just, if they, assuming that they're as busy as Chief Doyle says, and everything I've seen, they are, the call volume, the rate of crime is tremendous here. We have heard some complaints about response time because you call and there's just not an officer available. And so, there's other non-uniformed personnel in the department. And if Chief Doyle isn't going to come forward like Chief Hampton did and say, here's what I'm gonna do, I feel like we need to put something in here to ensure that these cuts don't fall on the shoulders of uniformed personnel in the department. And, and I would further add to that, cutting uniformed personnel, and I think Chief Doyle alluded to this as well, cutting uniformed personnel is pointless because you still have to fill the shifts and run the calls. So if you cut heads, you just end up paying overtime and you've got worn out guys working more hours than they want to because we don't have a choice. So again, in terms of budgeting, it's our prerogative, we don't only allocate money, we also set the number of authorized people. I do not want to have the situation arise that Chief Doyle says, well, you didn't give me a choice about cutting, and there's nothing else in my budget that I can spare, therefore I'm cutting 3 patrol officers. I don't want that to happen. So I believe and I'm okay with the 300-300 split. I'm perfectly fine with that. Chief Hampton's agreed to it. That gives the PD another $50,000, which is, I don't know, 2/3 of a rookie officer, I guess. It's not a lot, but it's something. But regardless of that, I believe that we need to have budgetary guidance to ensure that the cuts made in the PD are not made to bargaining unit uniform staff.
Thank you, Mayor. I can appreciate where Councilman Cassoff is coming from. However, City Manager, I would hope that are you saying that you need that guidance from the council? That's not something that you can do on your own?
I didn't say one way or the other.
Well, I'm
It's,
asking.
it's council's prerogative to pass whatever motion they see fits. You could make that motion just for dollar amount. You could make that motion for a dollar amount excluding certain positions. You could do however you see fit. The motion can be whatever at this point. As I mentioned from the beginning, I'm relying on my department heads to make the cut. I have received email from Chief Doyle that if he gets that directive, he will make those cuts. But you as a council have the authority to make that motion however you see appropriate.
I'd like
And
to make a
so,
motion,
hold on,
Mr.
I'm
Mayor.
still talking. Point of order. Thank you.
So when we were here last Tuesday, I talked to my face was blue. I appreciate you finding the extra cuts in capital. But it's still one thing that we can do, but people are not willing to do that. And then I kept thinking about why. And so I understand why. So I was one of the people that cut half of the consent agenda. It was on the news. I got hate emails, all kinds of things. I didn't care because I knew it was the right thing to do. So it's $300,000 to fund the consent agenda. In a couple months, it'll be gone. I want to fund it for 2 months. That will leave almost $300,000 that the fire and the police can split to save jobs. I understand why this might not be popular. Basically, this is a volunteer position for me. It's not for you guys. You got your pension, this is how you make a living. So when it's hate emails and texts for you guys, it's different for me. It can just roll off my back. I don't care. But for you guys, it's not the same. You don't want to be on the news. You don't want to have people calling you up, cussing you out. You don't want to have to watch your back when you go into your car. Get it. But we can save so many jobs just funding it for 2 months. And I understand the optics. If we defund it again, we'll be in the news, the judge will have something to say, but it's not up to the judge. It's the Department of Justice that has the final say. The judge is just a placeholder. So this is one thing we can do to make the burden less on the police officers and the fire department. But people are unwilling to do it because it's unpopular. But sometimes the unpopular choice is the right choice. That will make the burden less on salaried employees. So this is the last time I'm gonna talk about it. And I understand why it's not popular and people don't wanna vote for it. But it is the right thing to do. Our purpose is just to balance the budget. Once we balance the budget, if more money is needed for that, we can do a motion at that time to reallocate the funds. But if we don't do it now and it goes away, we cut people's heads for nothing when we had an opportunity to save them. That's it. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify that the judge is actually the one that does sign off on the consent decree. So both parties could agree on adjusting or streamlining or whatever, but the judge actually has the authority to finally make that go away. So she's more than just a placeholder in that regard. So we do have to be conscious of that. So.
You're correct about that. I'll give you another example, like, Congress just passed to stop Trump war powers. It's irrelevant because he can veto it. So the judge can say whatever she wants, but the Department of Justice has the final say. And what people don't realize, a special agent in the Department of Justice has more authority than an FBI agent. They still work under the Department of Justice, but a special agent of the DOJ has more authority and power than an FBI agent. So I understand what you're saying, and you want to play nice, but I'd rather not play nice and save people's jobs and the morale of the police and fire.
Before,
I have a
before,
motion.
Okay.
You-
before Councilman Kassoff brings his motion to the floor, I'm in total agreement with him on this. I don't want to cut any officer's pay or anybody that's, detectives, officers. I know we have to balance the budget, but I'm hoping that there are some civilians that the chief can look at. I hope, I don't know. We're not there, I'm not there. But I just need your input on this, city manager, about maybe sending it back to the chief and giving him another chance to look at it, or what he said was firm and hard.
I feel what he said was firm and hard in the last email he sent was that he would follow the directive given by council. So whatever directive he is given at this point, he says that he will abide by, but he does not want to be the person making that selection if he doesn't have to be. So.
Can I?
Yes,
So for
Councilwoman
clarity,
Noah.
Again, I don't, why does council have to give that directive when the city manager can just go and proceed with the cuts that you think should be made and then bring the budget to council? I really don't think that the council needs to make a motion to give the city manager directive. We have a qualified city manager that is qualified to do that. The council can stay out of that, in my opinion. Now, I know that we have to balance the budget. I know that, and there are going to be cuts, but that's why we have a city manager. I personally don't believe that you need a directive from the council to not include uniform officers or detectives in that. You handle day-to-day operations. You are here every day. Do your job. I think it's an overreach for the council to make that motion, because then it's saying Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I was clear the other night that I had a sit-down meeting with both chiefs and discussed the 300,000 or 350 or 250 at the time. And that's when the presentation came back about, I cannot afford any cuts. And then the email came out after that, that if he's directed by council or myself to make the cuts, he will. But at the same time, I can't say what those cuts are gonna be, because like I alluded to before, I'm going to the department heads, asking them what they can do with their budget. I can't say that he's not gonna say, well, I'm gonna get rid of the most recent hires, or like, I don't know how I would do that as
Well,
police chief.
well, you know what, if he does that, then after you present him your suggestions, then that's just a decision that we'll have to live with. Because again, you're the city manager, you're his superior, and you handle the day-to-day operations of the city. And in my opinion, I just think that that's something that you should do, that you don't need a directive from council, because it's, I mean, you know what the city needs, city manager. You don't need that, because by giving you that directive, then it's saying, you know what, well, this is what council wanted, and so this is why. This is what you're doing. You are the city manager of this city.
And I don't think we disagree. I think what I'm hearing from council is that they are concerned with actual boots on the ground people when it comes to police officers and detectives. And they're not wanting to see that number diminish because we need those response times and everything else. And so the question is, does council want to make the motion for him to be able to pick and choose what he sees fit? Or does council want to protect the number of uniform officers on the streets and number of detectives? I believe that's what I heard.
I think it's the language is being manipulated, because you know what, I think that it's council, it's an overreach for council to make that motion, and that I would rather leave that up to you to go through the budget, make the cuts, and that's it. I understand that Chief Hampton did, again, and this is not to go back and forth, but it's just a different situation with police and fire. They have different, police has admin staff. We're in a consent decree reform. It's different. And that's just my opinion. I'm done with, that's how I feel. I would rather the city manager do it without councils. Has council ever done that? Has council ever needed to make a motion? Not since I've been on this council.
No.
Okay.
Since you've been on the council, we've never done
No.
it, but council has always dictated the number of positions by position. So the narrative that is in your budget outlines every single position that's hired within the city, from police officers, detectives, secretaries, public works staff,
Right.
park staff, everything else. So that is part of your purview as council to approve or disapprove the entirety of the budget.
Right, but not this specific, since I've been on this council, because I made a suggestion. Anyway, that's my piece. I think it's an overreach, and I would rather personally leave it up to you. Councilman Kassoff, you're free to make your motion.
Councilman Castle?
Okay, first I have a question of verbiage. If I'm talking about patrol officers, detectives, lieutenants, the collective of those people, is commissioned officers the correct term to use there?
It is, but you're getting to a problem because you have commissioned officers that are serving in all kinds of positions throughout the PD departments. A commissioned officer in that regard, you're gonna exclude secretaries, some clerks, consent decree, PIO. I would have to go look, but I can't remember if you've got actual commissioned officers in your evidence tech positions, those kind of things, but a commissioned officer from the
He's
chief.
shaking his head. I want a term for the purpose of this motion that will protect them guys and all the guys driving around in the cars. And I don't know what the correct term to you is for that. Can I have some guidance from one of the officers? Commissioned officers. Okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion that we reduce the budget of the fire department by $300,000, and that we reduce the budget of the police department by $300,000, subject to the requirement that no cut shall be made that involves the reduction or termination of any commissioned officer.
Is there a second?
I want to talk candidly because I don't want to throw a wrench in this. I appreciate the motion you're making. I do. My fear with your motion is if he has any officers that would be eligible for retirement that are commissioned officers, I don't want to throw a wrench in it, but that's my fear. And I don't know because I haven't had that discussion.
Well, so let's have a discussion about that.
Because I know for a fact from discussion with our fire chief, that a few of his are
So-
retiring.
So let's have a discussion about that. Well, I want to have a discussion about what he's raised an issue. So it may be, I mean, I've heard rumors that there's a couple of senior officers who are fairly close to retirement who might be induced to retire. And that would indeed generate cost savings for the department. Here's my problem with that. Those senior officers are doing a job right now that protects public safety. So if you've got a 30-year officer who says, I'll retire, and you don't replace him, you're an officer down. It's no whether you fought, the difference between firing an officer or having one voluntarily retire or resign. It's nice for the employee because you're not putting somebody out of a job who didn't want to be put out of a job. But assuming that what Chief Doyle said is accurate, and I think most of this community probably believes that it is, every officer on our staff is working hard. And if you have a senior officer who retires and you don't hire or promote somebody in backfill and keep the head count of the actual commissioned officers that are doing the work, if you don't keep that at the same level, it's a reduction, whether he says, I'm going to fire the 3 most junior patrol officers, or you have the 3 most senior lieutenants take voluntary retirement. If you have 3 senior lieutenants take retirement and you don't fill them, you're 3 lieutenants short. And unless those lieutenants were sitting in their car playing Pokemon on their phone all day, we're going to have a shortfall in what's getting done by our police department. And given the fact that, as Chief Doyle mentioned, we've had 9 murders year to date. And I think most people would say we've had some other crime issues going on in our community as well. The fact that some senior officers agree to take retirement only helps us if we're overstaffed and we're trying to avoid displacing people who need the job. It doesn't make a bit of difference in terms of police readiness, which is the main requirement here. So that's why I'm saying, I don't believe, whether it's a voluntary retirement or not, that we should be cutting our commissioned officers. I believe there's other places that that Chief Doyle needs to look, and that is why I put that in the motion.
I just wanted to be clear.
Understood?
There's a second. Okay. Yes. Councilwoman Noah.
So for clarity, because Councilman Cassoff just explained, that's even more reason why we don't need a motion and why, in my opinion, the city manager could just do the job, bring the budget to council and let us vote. That's my personal opinion. I appreciate Chief Hampton for, for suggesting, the suggestions that you made to your budget. But again, for that clarification that you just gave the community, that's exactly why a motion isn't necessary, in my opinion. But I'm one vote.
Castle.
In regard to the necessity of a motion, it's the job of council, first and finally, to craft a budget. The city manager presents us with a budget proposal, but that budget proposal is modified by this council through motions every single budget year. This is perhaps the most difficult and controversial component of the budget decisions we're making. Everything else, we moved and seconded and everybody voted yes. And there was no discussion and we all agreed. You know, we can cut the truck bed out of the capital budget. Everybody says it's okay, nobody cares. Department heads all agreed to some little cuts that amounted to a few $100,000. Nobody, and and the city manager gave us a list and we all voted and it was simple. This right here is the difficult decision. We were elected to make the difficult decisions, not to punt them to the city manager so that he could get blamed for the way things go. And listen, I have a great deal of respect for Mr. Musgrave. I believe he's done a better job on the budget this year than our finance directors in recent years have. Unfortunately, him doing a better job on the budget has made it a great deal more difficult because he could have just left the inflated revenue figures in there and we could have appropriated a bunch of money we didn't have, and then sooner or later the checks would start bouncing. But credit to Mr. Musgrave and some of the people he's brought in behind him, that they found the problems and that we are now being forced to correct them. That being said, I don't think there's anything more difficult than talking about making cuts to our public safety agencies. This is what we were elected for, and I believe it's time to put on our big boy pants and stand up for, you know, if you think, you know, and if anybody on this council believes that it's okay for Chief Doyle to cut patrol officers, then vote no on this motion. I don't share that belief. I believe that the commissioned officers of this department need to remain at their staffing level. I do not support cutting them, and I don't even support having the option to cut them, especially not after the presentation that Chief Doyle made. He made a presentation where he made it very clear that our city needs every officer, that our officers are already working beyond capacity, and I believe it. If that's true, I don't even believe cutting those officers should be an option. And I don't have any way of predicting what anybody's going to do, but it's the job of this council, the elected officials of this city, to set policy. And I believe the right policy is to retain the commissioned officers of this department.
Okay. I am going to disagree with you that if a person votes no, they're voting against taking somebody off the street. Like I just said, my concern is if someone retired, because with this 300,000, it freezes that position, correct? So if someone retire, they don't get replaced, correct?
The plan is to also have a hiring freeze through December currently, other than one position in the day.
So if we motion to go with that, if we got someone that's gonna retire and then he do three people, or 3 or 4 people, whatever the number comes up with, we're still missing out on that. I feel that it's froze.
The hiring freeze doesn't apply to public safety.
I have to freeze everything
Yes.
through December.
There's no manning below, we have to have, so we have to maintain that.
We have to maintain minimum manning for the department, but it'll be a hiring freeze citywide outside of one position, which would be the city clerk, because we gotta hire that right now. So, but the plan is to have a hiring freeze citywide through December.
So if we have 10 off, I'm sorry, she has.
No, I mean, that was basically where I was going. If,
So-
so we all have heard that it's rumors that it might be somebody retiring. I think it is, I don't think that motion is necessary to say everybody wants the people that's patrolling and the detectives and everything. Chief has made that very clear. No one has said do that. I think we are under the assumption that he will do that. And I don't think the motion is necessary to give direction in that. I mean, common sense would say don't lay off or get rid of an officer if you have other people on staff that you can get rid of.
Well, but you don't know what's gonna happen,
And we also don't know if somebody's gonna retire.
I have to add something, because I was under the impression so if we have 10 patrol officers resign tomorrow, we're just gonna work with 10 officers.
No, because both CBAs have minimum manning built into them. So like, I can't put a hiring freeze if they have 10 officers and they're under that minimum manning level. Same with fire. They have a minimum per truck. But that's how you have to go by that. But there will be a hiring freeze that if it's not meeting that minimum manning, we can't rehire them.
So if we have 2 lieutenants retire, we just won't replace them.
Correct.
So do we have 2 extra
Well, most likely for the lieutenant position, it will be backfilled with promotions upward. We won't bring in a new body. to replace
Okay,
that.
so you promote 2 sergeants, and then you promote 2 patrol officers up to sergeant, and now you're down to patrol officers.
But we won't be because of the current status of the patrol officer category.
Well, that's right, which is a whole other issue,
Correct.
which may or may not,
Correct.
my understanding is they're not gonna be above,
They are currently, even without,
even without, okay, nevertheless, okay, yeah, you can promote from within. Although if you have a hiring freeze, promoting somebody to a higher position,
like how it would logistically work out with us being potentially over on, not detectives, but police officers. If we had 2, let's call it captains, retire. They move people up, move people up, move people up. If the lower officers are still at minimum manning, it would still be under a hiring freeze. If that drops below minimum manning, they'll be able to hire the officers to get them back to the minimum level.
well, I'm still gonna say, it may be that we can induce some senior people to retire if they're close to retirement, at some cost to the city perhaps. Regardless of whether we are at some statutory required staffing level, the fact of the matter is, if you lose 2 officers, you have 2 officers fewer than you did. And the remaining officers have to pick that up. Chief Doyle said, we're all overworked. We have no slack. We can't spare anybody. And so to me, I don't want to induce anybody to retire during a hiring freeze, because I don't want to have, and I honestly don't necessarily think, if they're over authorized staffing, different story. If they're not over authorized, if they're over authorized staffing and they promote, they can't hire anybody. I get that. But if there is a minimum staffing level below authorized staffing, and pushing people into retirement and moving other people up reduces the number of officers we have getting in the car and driving around and patrolling our community, Whatever mechanism by which that happens, there's fewer officers patrolling our community. I don't like it.
Councilwoman. One thing, before we ask for the vote. This is a tough decision. And I know our city wants our streets to be safe. That's one thing I know, working with the police department, being in the training, on the training committee, being on the interview panel. I hear the citizens. I hear you, citizens. In the real world, civilian cuts,
No, it is. Yep, you good.
in the real world, my mom worked in government. They cut. And I think we do have some civilian cuts that we can look at, that I feel the chief can look at. I wish that we could send this back to the chief to get his final discretionary opinion on what he can do. Because I'm a hard yes on keeping every officer and not cutting any of the officers' pay. But I'm not good with if there are 4 clerks. So we have a city clerk here that's doing 3 jobs. Sometimes we have to multitask for the good of the city. So I want to see every officer on the street. That's one thing I do want you to see. And if there's other discretionary cuts that we can do, let's sit down to the table, bring the city manager and the chiefs together and see what we can do. And suggest. I just don't want us to not be responsible for making some cuts that we know we need to have. So that's all I have to say right now. Are we ready to take a vote? Are we ready to take a vote? Any other questions?
Councilman
City
Castle,
clerk, please.
Councilman Castle,
I,
Mayor Shropshire,
Aye.
Councilman Williams,
Abstain.
Councilwoman Noah. Councilwoman Covington.
I do want to be clear that this will go back to Doyle, like I said, since you guys haven't made a motion on this, and whatever cuts he makes will come in front of you next Tuesday. You can make changes to it, but you're gonna have to make those changes on Tuesday because they're probably gonna be substantial. So be ready to look at those Friday, Monday, whenever I can get it to you. And then if you're not happy with them, you can make motions to change those, but just FYI, so. That makes sense?
And the motion dies on the floor. City manager?
I think that's all I have, truthfully. I mean, we're still $600,000 short at this point. And
Yes, Councilwoman Noah?
I was just gonna say, we're $600,000 short. I had a thought in my mind, but I don't like doing it, so I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm good.
I know we haven't officially made the motion, so I guess that's why we're $600,000 short, because it seems like we're $300,000 short, because we know that Chief Hampton he's made his cuts, right?
You haven't made a motion for either, and I don't.
So we
think
haven't made
I don't
that
think
motion
it's-
for
I
the
don't think it's appropriate to do one and not the other personally, but that's your decision. That's why,
Okay.
that's the way I was thinking in my brain,
I mean, I want to.
but I don't think that's.
Oh, and why not though? I'm just curious, because they're both chiefs?
No, Cause then you're cutting the fire department without looking at the other picture that was a larger budget amount. And I don't know how that's gonna go over in the general public.
Okay,
If he has to go back to his firefighters and say, hey, they cut, council mandated 300,000 is cut from your budget, but they didn't touch PD, how's that gonna go over?
okay, all right. Well, I asked for clarity, so thank you.
Any other questions?
And I'm still gonna go back with the same directive, just so we're clear. It doesn't have to be personnel. It's $300,000 from the police budget, from the fire budget, out of the general fund. That's what I am directing my chiefs to look at. I will be the first to say that the biggest egg in that basket is staffing, as we all know, because that's 80% of the general fund budget. But if they can find wiggle room to the tune of $300,000 somewhere else in their budget they can live without, that's their prerogative.
I request,
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I request a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah. Voice. Take a voice.
Yeah, just say all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
In favor? All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
So. That's something that we have to cut, So that's fire. And for me.